And good. Oh, I haven't put my green screen down. Oops. hence study. I'll be back. It's very high tech. This. Wait and see how it works. It's remarkable technology. I have to sort of reach up, and there we go. Look at this. Da, 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 da. It's always something I forget. Never mind. You guys will forgive me. There we are. I forgot to bring the universe with me. Dear. It's all good stuff. The magic green screens I find fantastic. I don't know what it is, but it appeals to the childhood wizard in me or something, because they're just, I don't know, because you can transport yourself instantly somewhere into the universe. I mean that God took 6 days to create the universe. I mean, I just did it like in about 3 seconds, you know. Dear. Not the first time, not the last. No, I sort of do have a bit of a checklist I have to go through, but it's been a long day. But never mind. There we go. I have tried wearing green clothes. It's quite amusing. Because you effectively just become a head. Disembodied. I should try that one. I have got the green shirt somewhere, but it's actually quite a I don't know if you can kind of. You can't really see it, can you? Because it's not going to work, because it's a green screen. That's why it's a green screen. But if you could see it was green, it's quite a bright shade of green. It's not something you would wear, at least not out of choice, I wouldn't have thought. Because it is, it's quite a garish green. I mean, I don't know what I'd describe it as, really. It's bright. It's not a subtle sort of, I don't know, summer day sort of green. It's a sort of bright in your face kind of green. Chroma green, exactly. I don't know what colour that is, but it's definitely not a racing green. No, racing green is nicely understated and quite British. This is definitely not racing green at all. It's colour lime. Yeah, it's a few shades darker than lime, but it's in that general direction. So, but there we go. Never mind. Anyway, lovely to see you all. Who have we got? All sorts of people. This is excellent. So, JR 1988 gets the first message of the evening, followed by Nim Duskrin, Hope Hubris, It's Only G-Man, Glenn is here, Commander Terra Firma, Mad Monk, Soft, Chili, Chayton 666, and Robs 2610. What's all the numbers? Winnie 1974. Hey, good to see you. Sapphira's here as well. Lots and lots of people. This is fantastic. Anyway, lovely to see you all. So, welcome back to Monday. What I can tell you is that paint, it's brilliant price. Mine is just it's a bit Heath Robinson. It works. So it's low tech. It's basically a piece of fabric, which I think is kind of proper chroma fabric, but it's kind of strung down from the ceiling and it's sort of on a roller. And I can just pull it down and then I can put it back up again. It's remarkable. So there we go. But yes, at some point, like I said, I think in one of my other streams, when I'm rich and famous, actually, and like I say, actually, again, let's scrub the famous. Let's not worry about the famous. Rich will do. Okay, I'm not going to be too picky. Rich will be fine. Then I will build myself a proper studio, because it would be nice to be able to. The one thing I can't do here, because of course I can only go back this far, about there. That's where the screen is. So whilst it appears that I have an infinite amount of space behind me, in fact I don't. I can only go back about a foot, so I can't stand up in front of my green screen and do anything. But there we go. It would be nice to have a massive green screen, like a painted wall, to be able to do other stuff. I'm not quite sure what I'd do, but I'm sure I'd have an awful lot of fun doing it. But there we go. That will get it. So how about Infamous? Yeah, I could probably work with Infamous. Infamous is probably all right, isn't it? Has he started yet? Yeah, I'm afraid I have. Yes. Is that the Voyager? Yeah, it is. It's the Voyager. I don't know if you can see. I think it's the Voyager one. Somebody more knowledgeable than me may be able to tell me. Is that the Voyager one? If I could close. Just try and lean forward with that bashing in thing. That's the camera can focus that close. Go on. Is that the Voyager one? There you go. Or not. It's either the Voyager one or the Pioneer one. I'm not sure. I think it is the Voyager one. But there we go. Keep it as it is. Adds to the charm. Yes, it's low tech, but it works. And it's all about the lighting. It is actually, the lighting is surprisingly difficult to get right. I mean, I'm not, as you can see, mine's not perfect, but it's all right. It works. and I could probably, yeah, I can see. I see I've got a little kind of green force field around my head, which is quite good. Which I could probably tweak out with a bit of lighting, but to get the lighting right, it's actually quite hard. So I should actually, some point, I will do a YouTube video or something on how to set up all this sort of stuff, because I'm sure somebody would be quite. It took me quite a while to get it to work. If you look back some of my early streams, they were absolutely appalling, both in terms of sound quality and in terms of graphical stuff. But you learn, you pick things up over the last. But there we go, never mind. And Resender's just rated the channel with 1 viewers. Excellent, thank you very much for the raid there. That's good. Voyager concept illustration for the aliens to build a phonograph. Yeah, so I think it is the Voyager 2. I can't see it obviously now because it's on top of my head. So I think it's the Voyager 2 one. That sounds more likely. It's more likely that one will be made into a hat pin. But there we go. So but I've got lights and stuff, and you can see actually they cast slight shadows there. There's a ghostly version of me behind the screen, which is basically Resenda just described. Oh, thank you very much for that. I do appreciate that. That's really good. And there's definitely a raid. Yes, there's a raid of. Well, presumably it's Resenda raiding. Yeah, well, thank you very much for the raid. Much appreciated. So the novel writing ones. Yeah. So some of the old ones are quite old. So at some point I should redo them. And do them properly. Now that I've got decent fidelity, but I had to save up for a bit because you have to buy quite a lot of stuff to get this to go. You have to buy lights, you have to buy a green screen, you have to put the green screen up, you have to buy a webcam, you have to buy a PC that doesn't crash every 5 minutes. Then you have to sound deaden things properly, and you have to put the microphone in the right place, you have to set up the microphone, and then you have to hope that somebody out there actually doesn't mind listening to you waffling on about some subject. Which for some strange reason all you guys don't mind. So there we go, never mind. So what flavour waffle am I serving up tonight? So yes, well I'm 10 minutes in and I'm still waffling, so that's what I mean. Maple syrup of course is the best flavour for waffles, although I am partial to Belgian waffles. Belgian waffles are good. Belgian waffles with I think it's a bit of cinnamon and maybe some what's that really fine fluffy sugar? Can't remember what it's called. It's not caster sugar. Icing sugar. That's what you need. Icing sugar and cinnamon on top of a Belgian waffle. That's pretty awesome. Belgian waffles aren't a thing, says Resenda, aren't they? I thought they were. Well, whatever I call Belgian waffles, one of them is what I like the most. And then I suppose kind of normal waffles but with maple syrup. Stroop waffles. Stroop waffles. Oh no, stroop waffles are a different thing. They're things that you drop in your cup of tea accidentally if you leave them on too long. Okay, Resender says Belgian waffles are actually waffles from Liège. Okay, where's Liège? It's because we're all wafflers on here. I suppose we are. Liège is in Belgium. Okay, so the Belgian waffles are from Belgium, but they're from a place called Liège. Is that right? So, and they're not called Belgian waffles. They're called Liège waffles, are they? Or are they called something else? I'm confused now. Honey over melted butter on waffles. Yes, now that's pretty good. I must admit, I like maple syrup on top of melted butter on top of waffles. That's good. And I think we call them Belgian waffles in the US too. My liege says. Says Mayor Sung. So Belgian waffles are actually waffles from Liège, and Belgian waffles aren't a thing despite being from Belgium. Is that correct? Have I got that right? And if you haven't tried a non-Belgian waffle, I would recommend you get, well, when you have an opportunity to, of course, get yourself to Belgium, go to Liège and ask them for a non-Belgian waffle. That's what you need to do. We call them, Resender says we call them, I don't know how to pronounce that. Waffles from Liège. Are they Luxie? I don't know. I've just completely ruined that pronunciation, I'm sure. Luxie waffles. Yes, this is now meta waffle. We've got to here, Glenn, waffling on about waffles. JL98, I remember a few years ago, it seemed that every chain in the restaurant decided that Belgian waffles were the greatest new dessert food ever, and then suddenly they disappeared. Oh, my pronunciation, rather surprisingly, wasn't too bad. French fries are Belgian. Is this the Belgium appreciation stream tonight? Jason666 says he has a waffle in Brussels once. I don't know what it was called, but it was good. Yeah, so I've had a waffle in Belgium, not Belgium, sorry, in Brussels, and it was indeed very good. So I don't know what it was. Maybe it was a Luxie. Is that right? Luxie waffle. But I don't know. I'd have to go back and find out. I can't believe we've gone waffling about waffles, but there we go. And goodness knows why Nimdra's going to subscribe. But anyway, there we go. Thank you very much. This has turned into the Belgium appreciation stream tonight. So all hail to Belgium, I think. That's where we're at. And Brussels sprouts are from Belgium. Are they? I suppose they probably are, yes. No, Brussels sprouts. I don't like Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts are one thing I definitely don't like. So you can have those back in exchange for the waffles. We usually eat our waffles with powdered sugar or whipped cream or strawberries. That sounds nice. Yep. Powdered sugar. Okay. Whipped cream and strawberries. Okay. Powdered sugar. Yep. Gonna have to scoot off for 60 seconds in 15 minutes doing a 250 million taxi ride in Elite. Okay. 1.2 million light seconds. Right. Yeah. Don't take your eyes off the screen there. Hope hubris, because bad things happen when you do that. No one likes sprouts. Nim just gave me a reminder. Anyway, thank you very much for that. I do appreciate it. Belgian chips are great as well. And we call Brussels sprouts just sprouts. So you're not so proud of the sprouts then. Nobody likes sprouts. Commander Terrafo, okay, what do you call English muffins? I would guess we just call them muffins. They normally, muffins, as far as I'm aware, in the UK are normally described by the thing that they contain. So you'd have chocolate muffins or blueberry muffins or something. I don't think, are they English? I'm confused now. Are they English muffins or just muffins? I'm not sure. Fries with mussels. What? Okay, so Fire's actually gone off to do some research now. I clicked through the Wikipedia sites. This is complete chaos. Belgian waffles are a North American version of Brussels. We have now actually this is it. What this actually shows is that waffles, we can all come together for our appreciation of waffles from Belgium that aren't Belgian waffles. No matter which country we're from, waffles are obviously a common dialect that we all share. So there we go. English muffins are flattish bread bun. American muffins are a cake. Okay. Ah, dear. Oh dear. Everyone's now just putting in their favourite recipe as far as I can work out. English muffins in the US are bread that you split apart and toast and put butter and jam on. I don't know what that is. That's not what I would think of as a muffin. A muffin to me is a cake, but crumpet muffins. Okay, so crumpet muffins, I would call a crumpet muffin, I think, a crumpet. Those are what you used to cook on a stick in front of the fire, but nowadays you put in a toaster. Is that what we're talking about? Duplex thinks we're talking about quaffles and has corrected it to waffles. And I think quaffles is actually from Harry Potter. I think that's a great big enormous ball that you score lots of points with. It's got nothing to do with waffles at all. We have gone very much to the next level with a waffle tonight. That's awesome. There we go. I don't know about you, but I'm hungry now. Stop it. Oh dear. Right now, come on. We just must bring this to order. I like waffles too now. I do genuinely like waffles. I even like potato waffles. What about potato waffles? Potato waffles are quite nice. They're not really waffles, of course. They're potatoes shaped into the shape of a waffle. So that's sort of an interloper waffle, isn't it? It's not actually a waffle, but it's waffle shaped. And we could get probably all existential about that. Is that when does a waffle not become a waffle? Is a waffle shaped waffle a waffle, or is it not a waffle? What about stotties as well? I can. This is why Talkie Toaster is a thing. You see, they are waffly versatile. They are indeed. Very good. A proper stotty is great in North East England. Yes, potato pancakes or cheese croquette interloper. Dear. Right. Anyway, to try and bring this vaguely back towards a sensible position, because it is now 18 minutes past 8, and I've just noticed my screen has, we've been around the galaxy once now, discussing waffles, and whether or not they are from Belgium or not. Which it turns out that it sounds that they are, but they're not called Belgian waffles. I think that's about as much as we can get. We've definitely waffled too much. Oh, I think about it. Anyway, is a potato waffle a very slow waffle? Says Kenny Maglar, desperately trying to reintroduce waffles into the conversation. Is this the cooking stream? No, it's not. No, but we're all hungry now. We want some waffles. Stop it. Right, tonight's topic. I thought I was going to try and be vaguely serious, which was probably a mistake. Because tonight's topic was, well, I mean, we've had Perseverance land on Mars. We need to talk a little bit about Mars, I think. And we've covered Mars quite a lot. Cookies next week, yeah. Cookies, if you accept all cookies, Sophia, then yes, cookies next week. Food in science fiction. International breakfast foods. So now let's go to Mars. Now we have covered Mars before, okay? We have covered Mars before, and Mars, because we did War of the Worlds, and things like that with the Martian aliens and their tripods and all that kind of good stuff. Tonight's topic is muffins. And I haven't watched this landing video, and I heard a few people talk about. I haven't had time to have a look at it. So is that a video of the thing coming down from space and then landing on the ground? Because if so, that's extremely, extremely cool. So I do want to watch that. And talking off topic of Mars takes us to the chocolate. Yes, Mars bars a day help you work, rest and play. I like Mars, but I prefer the Planet Twix. So you guys are not helping, are you? You're very much not helping. I can't fancy a Mars bar now as well. That caramelly bit and the nougat bit underneath. Yeah. So Commander Terekov, all arriving 20 minutes late and just hitting the announcement of the main discussion. Perfect time. Yes. You've missed the waffle, Commander Terekov. The subject of the waffle this week was waffles. So so we sort of meta waffle kind of. Never been. Now Mars bars I always think are quite good. Milky Way was sort of a lightweight Mars bar, kind of like if you weren't tough enough to have a proper Mars bar, you had a Milky Way. Twix would, that had a biscuit in it, so that wasn't a proper chocolate bar anyway. A Marathon had peanuts in it, so that was no good. And then they changed the name to Snickers, and that was just wrong. So time to talk about Belgian chocolate. So no, stop it. Come on, be serious. And I do like Belgian chocolate. Hint. So Mars. Okay, so we've landed on Mars lots of times, and we're getting well. And I say we. I have to caveat that with the Americans. Okay, because the United Kingdom has sent the sum total of one spaceship to Mars, and it was never heard from again. In fact, there was a standing joke about, and the poor thing, there was a professor by the name of Colin Pillinger, I think it was. Colin Pillinger, that sounds about right, who was the lead sort of dude in the, well, we don't use the word dude in the UK, the chap, lead chap, responsible for the Beagle 2 project, which was a small spacecraft, British spacecraft, strapped to the bottom of a European space orbiter, I presume, that went to Mars. And I think the European bit worked and the British bit crashed, which oddly symptomatic of Brexit, actually. Anyway, there was a standing joke as to when will we know when Beagle 2 reaches Mars? And to which the answer was when it stops responding to radio. And for many years it was not known. Not known what happened to the probe. It was, a lot of people just assumed it completely crashed and was disintegrated, either burnt up in the atmosphere or something. But I believe it was the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. Anyway, one of the American things in orbit that's taking pictures of Mars all the time, actually spotted it on the surface, and it looks like it actually came quite close to working. It actually got down on the ground, but for whatever reason it wasn't able to unfold its solar panels properly, and it just ran out of power before it could do anything, and it wasn't able to transmit home because due to the way it was designed, all the solar panels had to fold out before the radio antenna could pop up. So for whatever reason, it wasn't able to unfold, possibly either damaged or it just got stuck. And that was it. But it did get down onto the surface of Mars. So there's about a metre square that the UK can claim on Mars. So yeah, there's Beagle 2 station on the surface of Mars. But anyway, so that's the sum total of Britain's contribution to Mars exploration, as far as I'm aware. Beagle isn't lost. It's nearly at Beagle Point. Classic British design. Yeah, that'll do. So Beagle 2 looks like a waffle on the surface. It does actually look like a small sort of waffle tray. It's probably about the same size as a decent sized wok, actually. So anyway, so that's as far as we got. But the Americans are getting better now. In the early days, the Russians and Americans were sort of competing with each other to get, well, actually the USSR, should I say, not the Russians. Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, as it was then, and America were competing to get spaceships to Mars, and it was just, they weren't having any luck at all, because it was really quite difficult to land on Mars, particularly with technology from the 60s and 70s, because you were relying on heat shields to slow you down effectively when you got to Mars. And the problem is, of course, the Soviets, that's better, Kelly Barclay, yeah, that's better. The Soviets and the Americans were really struggling with the problem of getting down onto the surface, because you had a heat shield, but the Martian atmosphere is so thin, it's like 1% of the thickness of the Earth's atmosphere. There isn't actually much atmosphere there to slow you down. And so you're still coming in at pretty high velocities at the point at which you trigger your parachute. So your parachute, as you probably heard in the Perseverance stuff, your parachute is actually supersonic. So it's not like a normal parachute. It has to be able to survive a supersonic airspeed, but at a very, very low density, which is an engineering challenge which I wouldn't even know where to start with. But anyway, that's the problem that you've got. And even when the parachute is fully inflated, it doesn't give you the same drag as a parachute would on Earth, because the air density simply isn't high enough. So you still come down pretty darn fast onto the Martian surface, particularly if you weigh anything. So the first probes that we sent were really kind of small and lightweight, because that's the only thing you could get down. The Americans managed, and it's quite astonishing for basically 60s technology and early 70s technology, managed to get the Viking landers to land on the surface of Mars and actually work when they got there. But they used retro thrusters to land, rather than parachutes, because they were quite big, heavy things. So they actually had to use rockets to land. And basically ever since then, it's either been a combination of rockets and landers and parachutes and heat shields, or it's been that amazing bouncing ball version. You just inflate a huge, great big kind of absorber ball and put your probe inside that, and then it bounces along the Martian surface for a couple of miles before coming to a halt, and then you deflate the bag, and then your Martian thing can jump out. So it's actually quite difficult to land on Mars. Most of it to do with slowing down. Did they make the parachute out for Superman? So I don't know. Well, the problem with taking a big parachute, of course, it all weighs, and everything you take to Mars, you have to get up into space, which is expensive, because all we've got at the moment is chemical rockets. So that's a problem. Drew, putting Mars to one side for a moment. There we go. What do you make of the possible discovery of life on Venus? Well, that one's fascinating. I can't remember exactly what it was. We did discuss that, I think, a year ago, and it was it some microbes or something living in the atmosphere high above, or at least potentially living in the atmosphere high above the surface? I mean, that to me sounds certainly plausible and worth investigating. I think, and we'll touch on that, because obviously it's not just Mars but Venus as well. It's the whole possibility of life outside of the Earth that is kind of the topic du jour, I suppose. They published a photo from the orbiter showing the parachute, heat shield, and Perseverance. Yeah, I saw the parachute and the thing dangling below it this morning, and then also the shot from the launcher thing that was dropping it down onto the ground. Very impressive stuff. And the fact that the video image quality now of just the engineering cameras is way better than the actual proper cameras of space probes long gone before us. So it's quite impressive. Latest on Venus is lots of doubt on the phosphine detections. Oh, it's a shame, because that would be quite interesting to know. But anyway, so landing on Mars is quite hard, so it's quite impressive that we've managed to do that. And this time, I mean, NASA's sent quite a few rovers, haven't they, from the little dinky ones. What was the first one? It was the Sojourner rover. Is that the first one? I think that was the first moving thing on the surface. Then they had Spirit and, was it Curiosity? Opportunity. Spirit and Opportunity. There we go. And they were a bit bigger and they could do a bit more. And they went on for ages, particularly one of them. I think one of them lasted quite a long time. The other one just went on and on and on and on and on. It was always getting embarrassing that it wouldn't break down, I think. I think it eventually just sort of ran to a halt and its batteries ran out, but it went on for a long, long time. And then they had the last one. Curiosity is the biggish one that's been around for quite a few years now. And obviously now Perseverance, which is like a Curiosity plus, isn't it? There we go, Sojourner. It was Sojourner, which and has also taken a helicopter with it, which is awesome. I can't wait to see what that does. Sort of aerial pictures of things. I think that's going to be very, very cool. So that's interesting. Now I suppose the topic tonight, with all that in mind, okay. So we have now sent, and the key thing about Perseverance, which is different from all the other missions that have got it before, is that Perseverance has landed in an interesting place. And I mean that, and that's actually sort of straight from NASA. Every space probe that has been to Mars up until now has had to land in what scientists would generally call boring places. And I'm simplifying a bit there. But boring places mostly for safety of the lander. Okay, so I remember my dad talking to me about Viking back in the 70s when I was a kid, and he was basically saying, and I said, why didn't they land on a mountain, or why didn't they land on that volcano thing, that massive volcano? Why don't they land in a crater and look around? And he basically said the reason they can't land there is it's too, the thing probably would break when it landed. They need to go somewhere flat and boring to make sure they can actually land. Boring places don't have much to hit, so that's right. So there's going to be stuff on the ground. Actually, I think it's one of the Vikings actually did land slightly propped up on a rock. It is actually tilted. I can't remember which one, whether Viking 1 or Viking 2, but one of them is sitting on a rock, and it is tilted because of the way it landed. And one of them landed quite close to a largish boulder that. Had it landed on that boulder, it probably would have tipped over and crashed. So even in the boring places, there's obviously hazards, and the surface of Mars is strewn with rocks and stuff. But it didn't land in Bognor, so that's a win-win. I've never been to Bognor Regis. I've driven past it. It's a sort of place of great repute in the UK for reasons that I'm not quite entirely sure of. I think it's like a sort of retirement. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know anybody who comes from Bognor Regis. I might be doing it a great disservice, but it's sort of one of those places which is kind of at the end of the map, and it's kind of it also seems to be the sort of place you only go at the end of your life. Retire to Bognor Regis by the sea. So I have no idea, because I've never been there, but I kind of assume it's sort of a place where, not to put too fine a point on it, people go to die. Do they have waffles in Bognor Regis? I have no idea. They land in boring places and then bore into the ground for samples. Very good there. I see what you did there, Glenn. That's very good. Thank you for the follow there, Black HD. Appreciate that. Do the Viking landers like Belgian waffles? I have no idea. That would be interesting to know, wouldn't it? It would. A thin atmosphere with no water should have been greatly reduced erosion. The big problem seems to be, for the probes at least, is dust. Dust builds up on the solar panels and stops them working effectively, and then they run out of charge, and then they sort of die, I suppose. And plus the cold is a problem for the landers, because it gets jolly chilly at night on Mars, particularly in the winter time. I think the hottest it gets on Mars is just above 0 at the equator in the summer. So it's not a very warm place. So I don't know. If it's anything like Lowestoft, the only good thing coming out of Lowestoft is the A12. I don't know. I may be doing Bognor Regis a complete disservice. I've never been there, so one of these days I may have to go and do that for research purposes. Anyway, so the key thing, so Viking 1, Viking 2, all the other rovers and all the other probes thus far have landed in deliberately boring places for survival of the spacecraft, whereas Perseverance has got this. I don't, what do they call it? It wasn't sort of train following radar, but it was something like that. It was. They've got high resolution maps of the landing area, and the computers on board the rover are smart enough to scan the terrain and figure out where they are and go, oh, we don't want to land over there, there's a red zone, let's land in a blue zone or a green zone. And so it's able to kind of adjust its trajectory on the way down and then land in a safe place, but in interesting areas. So they've landed in a lake. Of course, there's no water there anymore, but they've landed in what they believe, it certainly looks like from the pictures. I mean, and I assume that NASA scientists know what they're doing. It looks like it's a lake, it's a dried up lake, and it has an area where the shoreline would have been. It also has a river delta flowing down from the crater rim, which shows signs of flowing water and all sorts of interesting things like that. So a far more hopefully picturesque and scientifically interesting place for the Martian lander to have landed, and Perseverance gets to drive around and go to some interesting stuff rather than boring stuff, which everything else has been looking at. And of course, the big deal, the big deal here is that, if there was life on Mars at some point in the past, if there was, and it's, could there have been? Yes, there could have been. Has there been? Well, that's the big question. But if we're looking for, fossils or evidence of something, a dried up lake with a riverbed full of, sediment remains from the river, and the fact that the riverbed would have dried up and anything would have been concentrated at the bottom of the river and on the the shorelines and stuff, seems like a very, very, very exciting place to go and look for the remains of life. So Perseverance has got if there is life, or at least there was life on Mars, Perseverance has got a good chance, I think, of picking up some evidence for it. It's going to be fascinating to see what we find, if we find anything. Now, all those finds will be disputed. Now, I understand that what Perseverance is going to do for the most interesting stuff it does find, it's going to stick in little metal bottles, seal up, and leave for some future space mission to go and pick up and bring back to Earth. So that's supposed to be at the end of the decade or something. So that's going to be interesting to see if they manage that. It'll be interesting to see, because this is one of the best chances we have, I think, of picking up whether or not there was any life on Mars. Probably a few billion years ago, but so it get kind of game on as far as I'm concerned. Now, the interesting thing, what I want to discuss with this isn't quite a first contact scenario, because of course one assumes that life on Mars, if it did exist, died out quite a long time ago, and there probably isn't a great deal left, even if there was any. But Mars, a few billion years ago, was, we think, quite Earth-like. So it would have had oceans. It would have had ice. In fact, it still has ice caps. It spins on its axis just a little bit more than 24 hours. So it was quite Earth-like, and back then it would have had a decent-sized atmosphere, and certainly we think could have supported anaerobic life, if not aerobic life, as we found on Earth. Now, I'm not expecting there to be great big fossils of great reptilian things lying around on the surface, although that would be very cool if we did find that. But microbial life seems like quite a strong possibility for an environment like that. And the question is, the big question is, did life evolve on Mars and then got snuffed out by the fact that the planet was too small and the atmosphere was lost to space and all the water evaporated? So that's the big question. Now, my question for you, the question for the stream tonight is, what difference will it make to the world? What difference, will it make to the world to discover, let's say in a few weeks' time, in whatever means, let's say we actually find a skeleton or something, I don't know, a fossil perhaps, is actually more accurate, isn't it? we find something that's virtually incontrovertible proof that there was life on Mars. What does that do? What does that do to us, here and now in the 21st century? Because the greater part of me would like to go. This would actually be a major societal impact to humanity. And the naive kind of elevated part of me that is not decayed and crushed down by the realities of life would like to think that the discovery of life, or even past life, on another planet would be of massive significance to us, that we are not potentially alone in the universe. In fact, there was life just next door, and that might undertake some huge change to society to know actually that out there it's a very, very, very good chance that we're very much not alone in the universe at all, because in fact there is life on another planet. What would it do? So that's one part of me would like to think that it would have a really, really positive impact. Everyone would stop and go, wow, we are not alone in the universe, this is amazing. Well, peace everyone. Whereas the more cynical, kind of probably more realistic part of me nowadays would basically say most people go, huh? And just go back to their iPhones. I don't know, so that the Bible would have to be rewritten. Well, it does, I think. I mean, it depends. I mean, I'd be interested, because I know some of the folks, so I think JR 1988, the answer is bugger all difference. And that's what worries me, because I think people will be missing the implications. And maybe people don't generally think a lot. I don't know. Sometimes when I try and have conversations with people with things like this, they kind of just look at me as if I'm talking a strangely different language, which is probably the impression that I give to a lot of people, actually. But but I would like to think, the astronomer in me, I think, would like to think, no, this is a big deal. Okay, this is bigger than. This is bigger than the latest graphics card, or this is bigger than there's a 2-for-1 offer at Tesco's. Or actually there's a new car out. This is big news. Okay, there is life elsewhere in the universe. This is epoch changing stuff. But I fear that most people will go, meh. I don't care if there's some microbes on Mars, or there were some microbes on Mars a million years ago. So. I'd like to think it would have a really positive impact, but I worry that people would go, I don't know, what do you think? What do you think would happen if there was incontrovertible proof that there had been life on Mars? So JR 1998 is going with bugger all difference. Religious groups going up. We'll talk about the religious angle in a minute, because I think that's quite interesting. Microbes from Mars built the pyramids. Cool Spot 48 says 07 everyone. Good to see you, Cool Spot 48. So JL98 says religious groups apparently already have policies in place for first contact scenarios. Now that's interesting. I wouldn't mind reading one of those. Lots of religious people who would not be disturbed by finding extraterrestrial life. Others who would be pretty disturbed by it. That sort of makes it. Rob says it would be nice if it had the same effect as happened in Star Trek and Unifiers. Now that would be my hope, but I'm having seen how easy it is to break people apart nowadays, I suspect that's not going to be likely. It would depend on when that life existed, i.e. before life on Earth or after evolved at the same time. That leads us on to another topic, doesn't it, Killy Bagdar? So we'll get to that. Primitive life is not all that important. We're aware of the possibility, and we're even kind of looking forward to it. The chemical and structural difference between us and them will be extremely more important. Now, so that's the trick, okay? That's the trick. Now, that's an interesting point. Kelly Bagdar's touched on it, and thank you for that, Talifo, as well. That's a great username, by the way, Talifo. I like that. Can I pinch that for a book? That's an excellent surname. Twoplex, British reaction. No, it's dead already. Too bad. We would like to have shot it. I could just see it. Yes. If the British Empire had still been around, we probably would have gone to Mars with a couple of double-barrel shotguns and shot it for a bit of sport. So it's interesting. So now this is the key thing: is all life on Earth, as far as we've so far discovered, is based on DNA. Okay, deoxyribonucleic acid. The double helix structure with 4 amino acids. No. Well, I've forgotten my biology now. 4. What are they called? Not genes. Is it genes? Anyway, you know what I mean. The 4 things that make up DNA in that combination. And it's not genes. No, that's not right. Is it amino acids or is it proteins? No, proteins are the building blocks of amino acids. Amino acids, I can't remember. Anyway, you know what I mean. And all life, it's very scientifically accurate, this stream, as you can tell. Bases, that's it. Yes, Hugh in 1980, bases, that's right. So what the bases are made of, forget. Anyway, yeah. And it's adenosine and chromosomes, bases, no. Chuck some biology terms in the chat, everybody, quick. Anyway, we know what we think we mean. Anyway, all life on Earth is based on DNA. Okay, so it uses DNA to basically hold the structure of how we work, and that's the basis scale, and we're carbon based, and that it works off that. And the question is, if we could discover life on another planet, let's say Mars. One of the big questions that comes out of that is, did it stop hearing about waffles? Did it evolve independently of life on Earth? I.e., does it use something else other than DNA? Because if we discover life on Mars and it does use DNA, then the question is, what's the chances of it, separately evolving the same mechanism on two different planets? Or is it a case that life started on one planet and got transported to the other by meteorites or impacts or something like that? It could be that we are actually Martians, so maybe life evolved on Mars first. A meteorite hit, splattered some microbes onto a few rocks, which travelled through space, managed to land on the Earth after a few billion years, and then life on Earth got started from that source. So we could actually be Martians anyway. Or it could be that life on Mars got started from Earth in a reverse scenario. Or we all came from Venus in the first place before it got boiled away. All of those things are possibilities. And that can only be answered by analysing another life form, on another planet, or at least getting some kind of information that helps us tie that one down. So if life on Mars is DNA, has chromosomes, has cells that are very similar to ours, you've got to the question of whether there's a common ancestor between the two planets then has to be asked. And are we into life began out here? There, so we're almost back to Battlestar Galactica now, are we? And in terms of probabilities likely to evolve the same. Now, we have touched on this before in the talk about organic chemistry, in the sense that carbon molecules, carbon as an atom, carbon as an element, should I say, is the only element that has enough reactivity with other elements to actually be organic. So when you talk to a chemist about organic chemistry and inorganic chemistry, organic chemistry is the chemistry of carbon, okay? And inorganic chemistry is everything else. And it doesn't sound that there should be much in organic chemistry, but organic chemistry is incredibly complicated because carbon is the only element really that can do complicated stuff. It's just it will react with anything. You can bond carbon with hydrogen, you get methane. If you bond carbon with oxygen, you get carbon dioxide. If you bond it with nitrogen, you get ammonia. And carbon is really good at making molecules out of things. And the next best one is silicon. And silicon it can do a few things, but it can't really do much compared to carbon. So, in order to make complicated long chain molecules that can do intricate stuff like make beings or even a microbe, you probably need carbon to do it. So the chances are that carbon is going to be the basis of most evolution, simply because of chemistry. There aren't any other elements that can really do it other than maybe silicon at the outside. So silicon has a chance. So there's a possibility of silicon-based life forms. And they crop up in science fiction quite a bit. You actually have the Horta from Star Trek, I think, as a silicon-based life form, and the Silicon Avatar actually also from Star Trek in the Next Generation. I think presumably that's made of silicon, since it's called the Silicon Avatar, and it crops up occasionally in other bits of science fiction as well. Silicon is chemically potentially possible, but carbon is way better. Okay, carbon is like dead easy to do organic molecules with. There isn't anything else that can do that. in the periodic table. And since when we've looked out into the universe, we see carbon, we see hydrogen, we see oxygen, we see nitrogen, we see all the ordinary stuff. There's nothing particularly special about the stuff the universe is made of, so the raw materials are all the same. And we've been around the solar system and we see the same stuff cropping up: ammonia, nitrogen, nitrates, hydrogen, oxygen, ammonia, methane. It's all the same stuff. Okay, there's nothing special about what the Earth is made of, and nothing really special about what the rest of the universe is made of, as far as we can tell. And leaving dark matter and dark energy at the side for the time being. Okay, so the mundane stuff that the universe is made of is the same as far as we can tell everywhere we go. So the raw materials for life, i.e. carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, etc., are available everywhere. So it seems quite likely that life could get started that way. Phosphorus can do some weird stuff as well, says Camel Number. I don't know much about phosphorus. Okay, that's interesting. Carbon, who knew my ex-wife's cookie would have a hand in the beginning of organic life? Well, who knows, eh? Aren't the aliens from evolution silicon-based? I don't know, actually, GR1988. And the silicon exterior doesn't prevent a carbon-based interior. No, that's very true, Alicat. So, and Commander Hope Hubris has just managed triple elite. Well, that's worth a round of applause. Well done. Touchscreen. Not a nice thought, but there's shit on the moons. Could be life there if their sterilisation process didn't work. Well, who knows? That's going to be a very cheap B-movie sci-fi novel, isn't it? Poop monsters from the moon strike back. Dear, that would be quite bad. It would be highly irradiated poop by now. So that's. I mean, actually, if it's a science fiction, a bad B-movie science fiction novel, you fire radiation at anything, it gives it magic powers. So that would be pretty bad. I don't. This. that's not kind of where I was going with this, but good distraction. Well done. Anyway, what was I before that? We're talking about carbon. Okay, so on Mars, there's multiple questions. Is it carbon based? Well, probably it would be. Okay. Will it have DNA? Interesting. Will it share a common ancestor of creatures from Earth? Because, we know Mars and Earth have exchanged rocks in the past, and it's not a stretch of the imagination to think some microbes could have hitched a ride in either direction. So that's interesting. And all those sort of questions are there to be answered. Will society be made different? Tardigrade poop monsters from space. Someone's going to make that movie now. I was thinking actually on the completer side, just because this is random waffle time. On the completer side, I came up a few years ago with the film Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, and I've watched it once, and it's I don't know, it's a sort of psychological thriller, I suppose, isn't it? And I remember thinking at the time, actually, hang on, okay, so Girl with a Dragon Tattoo. I mixed it round, and I went, what about a dragon with a girl tattoo? And I was thinking, that would be a really good fantasy novel, a sort of spoof fantasy novel, Dragon with a Girl Tattoo. And I went on Amazon the very next day, and I was dismayed to find that somebody had already had that idea and done it. So there is a book called Dragon with a Girl Tattoo, which I think is a very cheap sci-fi fantasy knockoff. So anyway, there we go. So going back to life on Mars, I would hope that the discovery of life on Mars would be quite a profound thing for humanity, but I'm concerned that it probably won't be. I was one of those people who many years ago thought to myself, you know what the problem with society is, that we don't have access to information. If only we had some means that we could access all the information in the world, then world peace would happen, because we'd all be educated and informed on all subjects, and everything would be great because we'd have lots of knowledge, and that would solve all the problems. That proved to be a very, very bad prophecy on my part. So now we do have everybody to access, and what do? We spend more time arguing about things and posting pictures of cats. which I don't, which I have been guilty of as well. So there we go. I'm supposedly an intelligent, vaguely intelligent person anyway, and I do resort to posting pictures of cats. Now, if the internet has proven that thought very wrong, you're quite right, Alicat. You're quite right. So back to Mars on that one. I'd like there to be a profound impact, but I suspect that there won't be. Maybe Mars is almost too close to home now, from that perspective. So that's the thing. Now, touching on the religious aspect, now I'm interested in what JR 1988 said about, there are actually sort of, I suppose, contingency plans, stroke policies for first contact in some of the religious institutions. That to me is quite fascinating. I'd love to read one of those, because in my head, I mean, I'm not a great student of religion, as you know, but most of the religious stuff I've read tends to place the earth as kind of the focal point of the religion. God creates the heaven and the earth, places people on the earth, stuff happens, stuff goes wrong, we need to have redemption or whatever it happens to be, depending on the religion, of course. And the earth is the thing, and the heavens are kind of over the earth, and they're not particularly scientific way of describing things. Some religions do make mention of stars, but not generally in a sense that they are places that you could go to. And I certainly got the sense, as being brought up in I suppose what would be a Protestant Church of England Christianity, that God was really only concerned with the earth and the people on the earth, and that we required redemption through Jesus, as I understand it, and then that was to do with the people on the earth. So I must admit, I do remember thinking at about the age of 14, what if there's another planet? Does Jesus have to go there as well, or is he? Is the other planet covered by us? And I remember, I think I asked that question and I got told to shut up. So I don't know what the official stance of Christianity or any of the other religions is on extraterrestrial, at least let's say sapient stroke intelligent life. I don't know what the official statement would be. Is it a problem? Is that something that would cause religions an issue, that there was life on other worlds? Or would they incorporate it into their kind of core beliefs or not? I don't know. I mean, they've incorporated quite a lot of scientific advancements into their kind of mode of thinking without too much difficulty, I suppose. I mean, there's been a bit of angst over evolution and things like that in the past, but most people who believe in a religion of some kind today generally seem to be quite happy with scientific advances. But I wonder if extraterrestrial life is one of those things that's actually kind of, that really is fundamentally different to, how can you accommodate that in your religious thing? I don't know. That to me would be quite interesting to talk about. There were studies done about religious views towards aliens. Most apparently said it would make no difference to their faith at all. You see, that I find quite interesting, because surely those aliens, if they're intelligent stroke sapient, would they not have a relationship with God in the same way? I know that to me would be interesting. It would be fascinating to talk to an alien about this, of course, which is a problem. But although Drew, many religions have a concept of heaven and it's in the sky, so they hint at the sky in the heaven. Yeah, so I suppose that heaven is generally, I suppose, perceived to be up, which obviously doesn't really make sense in space. But most churches are against intelligent life, either on other planets or in the congregation. I read that totally seriously up until that point. Here in 1980, I kind of feel that my take on the religious front would be that we were told what we needed to know at the time. Oh, okay, well that's quite good, because that makes more sense to me. That okay, so the religious truth that you currently have at this point in time is as much as you would need to be revealed to you for the state that your society is in. So I suppose that a religious person can accept that there would be further revelations on the subject as knowledge improved. I suppose that makes sense. Yep. Some religions have incorporated dinosaurs, so I think aliens would be assimilated too. Okay, that makes sense. Yep. Hardcore young Earth literist religious groups are going to go all denial on any life. Well, I mean that's as dismaying as it is to see denial happen. You know, and it's certainly not confined to religious groups, is it? Denial of reality is a common malady for us humans, alas, it seems. A lot of people who think themselves religious don't actually know their Bible. And actually, I have actually read the Bible, partly out of morbid curiosity, but I don't like to critique things I haven't actually read. And I was surprised by the Bible, because I kind of, going into it, I kind of thought, well, you know, I'd read Genesis before a few times, and Genesis is quite accessible in the sense that it's a kind of creation legend, isn't it? You know, God does this, God does that. Animals, 2 by 2, the ark, you know, Adam and Eve, and all those kind of things. And then there's Noah, and then there's, you know, prophets, and then there's the Tower of Babel and that sort of stuff. And so it's sort of a set of small sets of stories which sort of explain how the world came to be. And then, you know, I think it's Joshua goes around, you know, sort of, from the way I was reading it, sort of a bit of a military campaign of destruction of all native tribes in the name of God, which was a bit uncomfortable. But, you know, it's a set of stories, and then up to a point, and then suddenly it becomes a rule book. I think there's I can't remember what it's called. Is it Leviticus or something? Somebody would know. But and it gets really, really heavy going. It's worse than the Silmarillion, and that's saying something. You have to wade through an awful lot of, you know, don't boil a goat in its mother's milk, and, you know, don't go out on this time of day, and all that sort of stuff, which sounds quite difficult before you get back to some slightly more interesting stuff again. But and then of course that's the Old Testament. Then the New Testament comes along, and that's Jesus and the letters of Paul and stuff, which are a little bit more, you know, accessible to modern folk, I think, but yeah, it's a little bit curious. But the whole Bible as a thing wasn't what I was expecting. I was kind of expecting a kind of, you know, this is how to be a good person, which is kind of what I was expecting going into it. I wasn't expecting, I don't know, a lot of history and a lot of really ancient rules, and so on and so forth. So I don't know. It found it quite hard to be. So, but there we go. So I was veering around religion mostly, I suppose, for what's the perspective of religion on extraterrestrial life? Would it have an impact? Would some religions basically go, you know what, that's it, we were wrong. Our religion is hereby cancelled because there is extraterrestrial. I think that's fairly unlikely. I assume that you know, most religions will accommodate it in some fashion, which I think would be quite interesting. Will the larger society kind of go, yeah, whatever? I don't know. There's a huge section in the Old Testament that's made of historical records, 2 books of Kings and Chronicles. Yes, there are a lot of, I suppose, genealogies in there. That threw me as well, because it's like, okay, this. Am I supposed to remember all these names? That was quite hard work. Thank you for the follow there. So anyway, so so I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what religions make of extraterrestrial life, or do they just deny it, or they incorporate it, or they claim to have some, you know, extra revelation about it. I don't know. That which brings me on, you know, post Mars. Okay, so Mars is still going to be problematic, I think, because it's so close to the Earth. I think it will be a remarkable scientific finding if we discover that there is life on Mars, or at least was life on Mars, because then we can start asking ourselves, okay, is it related to us? Did it cross-pollinate? Is that how solar systems get seeded with life? Or did it start somewhere else in the universe and come to here, which of course only removes the problem one stage further. Because the big issue about all this is, how does life get started? You know, if there's been some experiments, very famous ones. I mean, I remember seeing one actually. Carl Sagan did it at the Christmas lectures in 1977 that I went to as a young boy. Basically they had this experiment where they took a flask, and I think they put in, I can't remember what it was, not a salt shaker, some salt. I think they put in ammonia and methane and some stuff, whatever it was, to try and simulate the atmosphere of the Earth billions of years ago. And then they passed an electrical current through it and bathed it in ultraviolet light or something, to see what happened. And surprise, surprise! At the end of this experiment, a microbe didn't crawl out of the test tube and go, "Hey, I've been created! Congratulations, humans! You've created life just like it was." That didn't happen. But what they did find inside that experiment was proteins and amino acids, which at least was a step along the way to creating life, even if they didn't get a microbe. They put in waffles, but that experiment has, I think, had some doubts thrown on it recently because the composition of the Earth's atmosphere isn't, or at least they don't think now, it was what they used in that experiment. So that was slightly off. And so the trick is you can stick a load of carbon, a load of hydrogen, a load of oxygen, a load of methane, whatever it happens to be, in a primitive Earth-like environment of several billion years ago. Give it some energy, give it a pool of water to slosh about in, and nothing happens. So, what is it that makes life start? Okay, and before we got to avoid getting into the what is life, because that's not actually as easy as it sounds to define. But how do you get a bunch of random elements or even molecules to start going, you know what, we're going to copy each other and make stuff, because why not? What is the essential spark that gets things going in the first place? All of a sudden, nothing happened. Exactly. The Miller Urey experiments. There we go. They created proteins and amino acids, not life, but not building blocks and part of life. Yeah. So, imagine if they had created a new life. That would have been pretty freaky when they switched it off and this thing came out and went, hello. But there were a lot of assumptions about what the early atmosphere might have been too, and I think we've now done a bit more research into what the early atmosphere of the Earth was like, and that experiment is no longer valid, at least not 100% valid. I don't know if anybody's repeated it since or tried to repeat it since. But there is that problem, basically. You can have all the elements, all the chemicals, all the molecules present, but how do you get them to do stuff? What is the magic that switches life on? It's a very fundamental question, because if we could reproduce that effect, if we could have a test tube in which we stuck some elements or molecules, gave them some energy, and within, I don't know, how long? A week, a month, a year, 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, a million years, I don't know. And then something happened. If we could understand that mechanism, then we'd be an awful lot closer to figuring out how life began and how probable it is that it could exist elsewhere. So that's one of those are the sort of fundamental questions I think that the scientists at least are trying to wrestle with. Did they try switching it on again? And arid on thorns. So this is the point. If we find life in two separate places, it must be clear that life is abundant. Now, I think if that life is proven to be life that is not related to itself. So, for example, it's not a bunch of hardy tardigrades or something that hitched a lift to Mars on the back of an asteroid, or vice versa, because that's a problem inside the solar system. And I think that's why hunt for extra solar life is actually in some ways more profound. But that's a little bit beyond our capabilities right now. So that's that really is. To me, I would, if that is proved, to me that would be an absolutely fundamental. I'd have to take a day off. I really would. I'd have to go and have a really good, long, hard think about my place in the universe. If it was proved that, and in a good way, I wouldn't be disappointed at all in the slightest. But it would be, to me personally, and I'm being very personal about this. If it was confirmed that there was life, had been life on Mars, or even today there is still microbial life on Mars, let's say, which is proven to be genetically, or not even, it doesn't even use genetics, it uses something else. It's diverse enough that it's not related to life on Earth. That would be a fundamental, that would really not shake my view of the universe, because I'm quite happy to entertain the idea of extraterrestrial life. But it would really be a profound moment in time for me personally. I'd really have to go and sit down and have a cup of tea. It would be that bad. But because that would really make me think, wow, that implies that life is common. Life is probably everywhere. There's a space for it to happen, which means all sorts of possibilities for the universe at large. So that would be fundamental. You don't get DNA right from the start. Complex molecules do form spontaneously in ever more complex forms. It's not that hard to get a simple version of RNA. So I'm operating beyond my intellectual capacity here, so I don't know. But I'll go with you on Lucky Luigi. So, but this is the trick. How quickly can it start? Thank you for the follow there, by the way, Jake. I missed that. The magic that turns life on, that's a spark. So I'm using the word magic there. It's possibly a bad word, isn't it? Because it's implying some sort of power beyond. The trick is the mechanism. Let's take magic and religion and God out of it for a moment. The mechanism that allows that complexity to begin to emerge. What is it? Could we define that? It seems to have eluded us so far. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a better idea by watching a newly formed solar system and see how it goes. So that would be quite good, wouldn't it? As well. But we'd have to watch it up close. It would take a long time to watch. I think that's the problem. Too bad we couldn't grab a bit of rock off how do you pronounce it? Amur? Something like that, to see if there was evidence of it. Do viruses have DNA or RNA? Must have been asleep in that bio A-level class. The chances of life being found on Mars are a million to one. Dun, dun, dun. Well, Lucky Luigi said, we've talked about that. Is it maybe life started on Mercury, Venus, Earth, or Mars, and then just hopped across on that asteroid. So it seems potentially quite likely to me that if we do find evidence of life on Mars, we'll find out that it's very, very similar to life on Earth, if not almost the same. I'd estimate the life of there being life on, having been life on Mars at one point in time, significantly less than 1,000,000 to 1. But there we go. JL1988 says, the reason I say it'll make bugger all difference is because I legitimately thought the first image of a black hole would have changed something, but it didn't. Here was definite proof of relativity, and no one outside the scientific community actually cared that much. I think, do you think that's down to it's too ephemeral for people to grasp? The fact that black holes exist prove Einstein's. In fact, I suppose relativity has actually been proved through transits of Mercury and the sun affecting the light of stars at times of eclipse. They saw that very, very early on before they could measure black holes. So relativity had been proved by observation long before black holes, and nobody, like you say, nobody really cared other than the scientists. But Drew, I am assuming it's a mechanism. I suppose I am. Yeah, got to assume something. Drew, if we found amino acids in some quantity and nothing else, RSV viruses, bacteria, does that count as being life? I don't think amino acids are. Carl Sagan always used to call them building blocks of life. I think they're a route to life, because as I understand it, proteins are not alive, but they are used by life, and amino acids make up proteins, and amino acids are complicated arrangements of organic molecules. That's how I understand it. So all that sort of stuff. Viruses consist of RNA. So RNA is a counterpart to DNA, which decodes DNA. Is that right? Or reads the DNA, allows it to be shuffled about. 3.7 billion years ago is about the earliest evidence for life on Earth. Earth itself is about 4.5 billion years old. So life is, and that's interesting, is that life is pretty fast at getting going. It only needs, and what is that? 0.8 of a billion years, so 800 million years, and life is up and running. Is that the same everywhere else, or is it the fact that we've got ideal conditions for life on the Earth? Question mark. Glenn says, what if it's not a natural mechanism that originates life? Well, I don't know. What would the mechanism be? Would it... that's a good question. I don't know. There is a scientific theory that microscopic life on Earth actually started somewhere else and was transported here on the meters. That's a good... I completely get that as a theory, and that seems quite likely to me. The trouble is it only removes the problem one step, because okay, if life comes into existence on Earth because it's come from somewhere else on a meteor, the question immediately is, so how does life get started on the place where the meteor came from? So it doesn't really help. I mean, it might answer where life on Earth came from, but it doesn't answer the question of how do you get life started in the first place. And in fact, Herodon Thorne has said exactly that. So there we go. Could it be a random event? I mean, it could be. I mean, maybe there's just a combination of chemicals at a certain temperature with a certain, configuration arrangement, and then at that point, if they connect in a relatively unlikely combination, but not astronomically unlikely combination, let's say for sake of argument, let's say it's 1,000,000 to 1. But if you've got billions and billions and billions of molecules floating about, 1,000,000 to 1 chance probably isn't all that unlikely, is it? So maybe it just happens because of random chance. I don't know. A GPS uses relativity. Yes, it does. Quite right, Cleonimus. So lots of things actually. If the theory of relativity wasn't true, lots of things wouldn't work. Like GPS is a great one. In fact, even I think even lasers and things in CD players and stuff like that requires quantum mechanics to be correct and stuff. So so all that sort of stuff is quite good. So I mean, so you're quite right, Kyle, that life could have come from somewhere else. But the question is simply, where did that life come? How did that start? So all those sort of problems, are there. Time is an illusion. Lunchtime does. So that's the thing. Okay, so I sadly think that if we discover life on, or even the existence that there was life on Mars, it's outside of us sort of science fiction bod types and scientific people. The general population of the planet are going to be very unimpressed. Which personally, there's part of me that sort of sinks in kind of like, really, come on, this is a big deal. Because I've had this conversation when I used to go to an office, which was a long time ago now. But I remember having conversations like that, and they'd go, "Yeah, well, I'll just watch the football." Like, really? And then they were but totally honest about it. They didn't give a monkeys whether or not there was any life on another planet, as long as the football was on. So that's just humanity. So, lucky Luigi, it's simple statistics, hundreds of billions of planets and billions of galaxies, the odds against all life over the place are literally astronomical. So, I generally agree with that from a mathematical, statistical perspective. But there's nothing like actually being able to see some evidence, is there? Otherwise, it's all just theory crafting, which is of course the problem here. We're extrapolating here with not much data. And semiconductors is a quantum thing too. So there we go. So quantum mechanics, relativity definitely work. Okay, we're happy with that. That's good. Glenn says the hardest thing I think for humans to comprehend is that if life is just an interaction of natural chemical processes, how are we self-aware and able to ask questions about our origin? I think that's why man has never searched it. Well, yeah, and we touched on this last week a bit, didn't we? As where does the line stop between what are we? What are humans? We tend to think of ourselves as separate from the animals because we're able to think and postulate and argue about things and debate the possibilities and hold thoughts and imagine things and create things and structure things and divine the secrets of the universe. But is that just emergent capability out of the very base materials that make? Because if you dissolve a human, not that I'm suggesting you should, we are not made of anything special. We are made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, calcium. The same old stuff that you find in everything else. There is nothing special about the components that make us up, and yet there is something special about us in the very broad sense that we are clearly a life form which is capable of reasoning in an advanced state and influencing our environment and working out what our environment is about. And we also have the willingness, the desire to figure out the environment. Now, my dear Labrador has a desire to figure out where the next meal's coming from, but that's about as far as her curiosity goes. which she's got a perfectly fulfilled life, and as long as there's food, and as long as there's some sleep, and as long as there's a walk, and as long as there's water and the odd tidbit and treat, then she says it's a pretty good life. And there isn't a great deal more in the universe that she needs to concern herself with. Certainly I have tried to explain quantum mechanics to my Labrador, but she wasn't very impressed. So what is it about us that sets us apart in that thing? Animals think, we just think better. So measuring how animals think is that a sliding scale at which point sentience or sapience becomes the thing? Is it a sliding scale up from a certain point? Is that something you can measure? It's because people don't wear enough hats. Life is guaranteed to exist everywhere. Sentient life is another issue entirely. So you do need more favourable conditions to make complicated creatures. So you could, I think, simple life like single-celled organisms that float around in water and are quite happy just floating around in water, reproducing and doing stuff, is probably fairly common in the universe. Where there's but complicated multicellular life is a bit tricky to come by. So I don't know. That'd be interesting. As long as there's a butt to sniff. Yeah, dogs are just weird on that sense, aren't they? Not quite sure what that's all about. What if there's life out there that is as far advanced as cognitive abilities over humans as we are over a dog? Well, you see, now this is the thing, is if, and lots of science fiction has been devoted to this, is, let's push this, we've got sort of 10, 15 minutes on the end of the stream. Let's push it to the next level. Let's forget Mars for a moment. So, good luck to the Perseverance Rover in its quest for microbes and ancient fossils of Mars. If, let's say we all wake up tomorrow, whatever time zone you happen to be in, and there is a spaceship hanging over your city, okay, which is clearly not of Earth origin, all right, because we haven't got anything that can do that. There's I don't know, an Independence Day style spaceship. What do you think you care to imagine? Okay, there is a spaceship of some kind floating over a city, casting a shadow on the ground, and it's quite clear the aliens have arrived. The general sort of science fiction way of approaching this is that shoot them. we tend to go quite gung ho in science fiction movies, and quite often the aliens come blasting at us. In fact, usually the aliens fire the opening shots, don't they? That's obviously, I wonder if that's a sort of fearful reaction to the idea of aliens. But I wonder again, how would society react to? Genuinely, what do you think society would do in a first contact situation if the aliens just suddenly turn up, here, with no particular preamble, they're just there one morning, and there's a big spaceship, and it's quite clear the aliens have arrived. These aliens would know so much more about the universe if only they sniff more butts. Well, that's obviously the way to learn if you're a dog. You are seeing very good special effects. I think a lot of people. Do you reckon a lot of people will be in denial, going, "Wow, that looks pretty impressive," but okay, so how is it done? Especially nowadays. You say, "Well, there's obviously a green screen somebody's put up in the sky or something." So if it was flown by the Dru, you'd run for your life. Yes, that's very true. Panic, says Commander O'Connor. Hope that they're friendly. People would freak out and start shooting. That's what we would do, says Glenn. So don't shoot at the aliens. You might start an interstellar incident. Robert says, why would aliens with interstellar travel capabilities bother coming down to fight us on their own ground? They could just bomb us. You see, I think that's a good point. You see, that's why the problem with all the invasion movies is that if you've got an alien culture that can travel through space, why would you? What possible interest would a small backwards planet like ours actually be? Because they could go anywhere. And what would be their motivations for destroying us, other than they just don't like us very much? I suppose that's look, there's some humans on that planet. Or maybe it's more sort of a British Empire thing. Oh, look, things to hunt, things to shoot. We can stick them on the wall of our spaceship. Maybe that's what we're actually worried about. Maybe that's a British piece of paranoia there. is that the aliens always want to come and shoot us and use us as trophies. So maybe that's a British response to alien invasions. The Americans will just shoot at it just because it's there. Don't bring a towel. I don't know. So to sell us radioactive fuel. So I mean, but there can't be any possible. If you've got a technology that can travel interstellar distances, there can't be anything particularly useful about a planet that you couldn't presumably create some other way. I wouldn't have thought. Perhaps they don't like tea. Do you have a flag? So I think they might hunt us for sport. I can kind of possibly see that. To sell us radioactive fuel. So, but you see, there's nothing particularly interesting on Earth that you couldn't find much easier somewhere else. Earth is just carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and a few trace metals hanging around. I mean, that's the same as anywhere else. If you want lots and lots of a metal, then go to the asteroid belt. It's going to be much, much easier to manage for a spacefaring culture. You could probably generate everything else you need from nuclear fission / fusion anyway. There's loads of water available even in this solar system that you could access far, far easier than coming down to the Earth and siphoning off our oceans. So what would be the point? No, that's right. So if you can travel FTL, there's no need to deal with inhabited planet with. There isn't. You're quite right, Becker. So I think, alas, I think the cool alien invasion with lots of lasers and things getting blown up, which also it always seems to be American, tourist locations for some strange reason. Now, aliens always seem to have a fascination, particularly with San Francisco, I find, and quite often Los Angeles and New York. Those places always seem to copy an alien invasion films for some strange reason. So why the aliens have got it in for the Americans, I'm not quite sure, but that does seems to be something that always happens. But I'm generally wondering if let's take it a step back, because let's assume, okay, so maybe it's a bad example, okay, let's forget alien spaceships, okay. It's much more likely that we'll receive a message, SETI style, from somewhere. Let's assume we pick up a message, okay, from, I don't know, let's say a random star in the Milky Way, 1,000 light years away. Okay, so there's no possibility of actual cultural communication in any meaningful way. Okay, so we get a message which is clearly extraterrestrial origin. It's intelligently produced. It's not a random noise signal. It's not a pulsar. It's not a quasar. It's not anything like that. It's definitely an intelligently created signal, but it comes from 1,000 light years away in space. Okay, so what happens? Okay, what happens? What do you think would happen? What do you think the society would make of that? The aliens would take us as sex slaves. Dear. The only reason I can see aliens visiting us is life is really, really, really rare, but I think they want to experiment on us, not destroy us. So that's an optimistic view from Glenn. Clearly, Baglow's premise is that we'd be unable to comprehend their reasons any more than a dog understands why we do things. I suppose we just look at it and wag our tail, I suppose. Yeah, that makes sense. Most Earthlings tend to blindly follow a leader, perfect slaves. That's got some consideration, which is a bit sad. Cool Spot says cat videos on the internet is the pinnacle of our capability. And they might see us as a parasite infesting and harming the planet. Maybe kid aliens on a test of courage. Don't dare land on this planet. That's a fire. That's really good. Glenn, because the Americans started it. Yep. Yeah, so 400 billion systems in this galaxy alone with trillions of planets. Why deal with the crap of trying to talk to the locals on a tiny little Earth like amongst all the alternative? Well, that's exactly it. Why go to the trouble? Why go to the trouble? I don't think they would. I don't think we'll see alien spaceships anytime soon, I fear. Which would be a shame, because I'd like to see an alien spaceship. So anyway, so back to the radio signal idea. It would probably turn off that radio. What's that noise? We analyse the signal. It's a rerun of We Love Lucy, because it depends on the message. Okay, so if it's a friendly greeting, then it's fine. If the message says something like they're coming, be mass ban. So I wonder what. I mean, we've been sending messages into space, of course. Sometimes not on purpose, sometimes on purpose. if an intelligent civilization is trying to make a specific attempt to contact another civilization, presumably it would send something a little bit more structured, a bit like our Voyager record, back up here, and the signal we sent from Arecibo, something that would be mathematically useful or mathematically discernible, I suppose. So I think, how would we know it's a signal? If we could understand it, people will say it's fake. If we can't understand it, then how do we know it's there? So it depends. I mean, it depends. I suppose that comes back to our ability to deny things, doesn't it? So, in my head, I mean, I'm going back to Carl Sagan's book Contact here, which some of you will know of, and the film, which was actually a pretty good version with Jodie something. Can't remember her surname. Anyway, quite well done film of the book Contact, and in that point, the signal is picked up by multiple radio telescopes around the world. So it's impossible to deny that the signal is coming from space because you can triangulate its position. Now, whether or not the general public would accept that, even if the scientists were happy with it, Jodie Foster, there we go. I don't know. I'd like to, again, with my naive optimism, think that humanity would go, what? There's a signal from space that proves that there is intelligent life out there other than us. It's not an immediate threat because it's 1,000 light years away and we can't talk to it directly. In fact, we don't even have to answer this transmission. In fact, they don't need to know that we're even here. But we're not alone in the universe. I'd like to think that would have a profound impact on human society, but I fear, alas, again, that it wouldn't. That most people go, meh. It was a great film. It says, sneaking suspicion that aliens would treat the Earth as target practice. So I saw a cartoon of aliens sending us a message about the Pioneer Medallion. Humans, stop sending us... What is this? You're polluting space with this. So, dear Earth, have you got time to hear about our Lord and Saviour? Yes. So it'd be interesting to know what an alien civilization did choose to transmit. So back at ZA, that's a good point. So it'd be 1,000 years before he had our answer. So even if they have been transmitting, and let's say they're quite some distance away, then we don't have to answer, and B, even if we did answer, it would be a 2,000-year round trip before we got the answer to the answer that we've just sent. So freaky deaky dude, most people wouldn't even look up from their iPads. Now that, you see, I think there's part of me that really is actually quite fundamentally sad by that. Because I don't know about you guys. I mean, you've probably got more in common with me on this one, in the sense. Well, not everyone's the same, but having read science fiction since I was a kid, and having, always been speculating on the nature of what if and all that kind of stuff. I can't think of a bigger question that needs answering at this point in time ever. Now that we know, go back in time 1,000 years or 2,000 years, we didn't really understand that there was anything beyond the Earth. The starry sky was sort of a backdrop that was there for our convenience. And yes, the sun and the planets and the moon moved around, but that could be levers. It was just sort of a stage. The world was a stage on which humanity played its part. And it's only in the last few hundred years that we've really grasped the fact as a culture that actually we don't live on a stage. We live in a very small planet that's going around a star, in a massively, ridiculously vast universe. And I suppose that for many of us, that doesn't enter our conscious thought day to day all that often. We drive to work. Well, we used to. We used to drive to work, and we'd talk to our mates down the pub, and we'd go for a beer, or we'd have some food, and we get up, we go to bed, we go back to work. We feed the dog, we go for a walk, and we don't contemplate the fact that we are small blobs of carbon-based life forms crawling around the surface of a relatively small planet in the midst of an endless void. I suppose it's not foremost in our consciousness at the time. So the question to me, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm off on a dog walk or something, I'll quite often be pondering what if life is elsewhere? I'll be thinking those things because I'm that way wired. Maybe other people just don't do that. So the question of is there life on another planet just doesn't occur. Whether that's a meaningful question or not doesn't register with them. I don't know. What are they transmitted? Help come save us. Yeah. Well, a great number of people have little understanding of the distances involved. I guarantee there's some of my fellow Americans who would still think that it was an imminent threat, even if it was 1,000 light years away. That's quite scary, isn't it? The idea that we'd be able to communicate with them about anything but math is pretty optimistic. Well, that's, you can start with maths, can't you, I suppose. Most people would probably say any alien transmission was confirmed as a hoax. And I suppose that denial, people won't accept that we landed on the moon, will they? And people are still basically debating whether the Titanic was an insurance switch and things like this. All that sort of stuff is very much there. Then the fake news thing that has become a bit of an endemic on social media over the last few years. All that sort of stuff is actually this technology holding up a mirror to our own psyches. Really, we are not very good at believing things that don't fit into our worldview. No levers, no, I'm afraid not. Tube times. I have a hunch that super advanced aliens aren't going to be sending messages out into space using radio. We don't know what tech they'd be using, so the chances of us getting internet messages are totally zero. Yeah, so that's an interesting one. So maybe there is like a galactic internet, using some technology that we just don't have a clue how to even approach at this point in time. So we can't partake in galactic conversations until such time as we figure that out. Then everyone's going, what? Yeah, it'd be trying to like send messages using pebbles being splashed in a pond rather than a telephone. Look, you're trying to communicate with waves. It's just ridiculously primitive. You can't do that. It's one of the tenets of the Fermi paradox. We're listening on the wrong stuff. So yeah, I think that's quite good. It's hard to aim for the works car park if you're thinking on the galactic scale. That's very true as well. Commander Shorty has the same dog walk thoughts. So that's encouraging. There are kindred spirits out there. Dogs are great catalysts for thoughts, even if dogs don't think a great deal of themselves. Humans live in their own little world of jobs and entertainment, not the meaning of life. So I find myself pondering those imponderables quite a lot, but I kind of get the impression other people just don't. I don't know. I have to say I often find myself pondering these things as Jan, but I don't have a dog to take on the walk. So, obviously dogs aren't essential to the process then. Mad Monk thinks alien life is mathematically probable. That makes sense to me, yeah. We can't even get everyone to agree that the Earth isn't flat. And that's the case in point, isn't it? It's like, why? You just look at all these things and go, but how? I don't know. It's very true. No, you're quite right. You're quite right there, Nim Duskwin. Most people would just wonder whether they've locked the front door. Now Drew ponders the answer to love you. Well, the trouble is, I have been able to go out without locking the front door. This is where it goes wrong, you see, because the practicalities of living I sometimes completely ignore, and I get into trouble. And we're not authorised to access the galactic net. So I don't know. All those sort of things. I would like to know. I would like to think that the discovery of extraterrestrial life in some form or another would be a very meaningful event for our society. But I fear that actually it won't be. That, like you say, people will just look up from their iPads for a brief minute and then just go back to whatever they were doing before. Certainly for me, it would be fundamentally not shocking, because I'm half expecting it. But it would be kind of like, whoa, okay. I mean, it'd be a serious cup of tea time. It really would. Commander O'Connor says, these thoughts normally hit me at about 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, that's not the best time to be thinking about them, is it? Because then it stops you getting back to sleep. So I don't know. That's interesting. That's interesting to me. I fear that it would kind of just go, okay, whatever. People would think it was I think you're right. I think a lot of people would think it was made up, because science has come up with some very surprising stuff. and even if you think of, I think of relativity and quantum mechanics, this is, they're completely not intuitive, aren't they? The way they work, but yet they work, but they're not intuitive. They're very, very strange. It would be a case of I'm not angry, just disappointed. Yeah. On a more positive note, the detection of alien life would be a serious impact, just not on the first moment. Okay, conspiracy convenient cover label for modern stupidity. And it would represent a huge leap in human knowledge and start all sorts of new research. I think that's true. It would. The fact that somebody else has managed to do something like that would be quite interesting. So there we go. Interesting stuff. So anyway, so trying to bring that to somewhere. Good luck to NASA and the Perseverance. I hope that the rover does find something compelling. Feels like it's about time we found something compelling. If I was writing this as a science fiction novel, we should have had a reveal by now. But it's going to be fascinating to see what they discover out there. So I think that's going to be very, very cool. And they've got a helicopter along for the ride as well, which is going to be very, very exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing what pictures that brings back. Life elsewhere. All this has happened before. All this will be happening again. Back to Star Galactica reference. I wonder. I think in hindsight, the whole first contact thing. I don't think it will happen like it happens in science fiction novels, where it's like a big kind of. It'll be a gradual process, maybe, of acceptance. But anyway, good luck to Perseverance. Wait, rover finding a Dru walking a dog. Is that a connection? When do we stop talking about waffles? No, we should go back to talking about waffles. Anyway, so my friends, you enjoy your waffles. I'm gonna have to dig out some waffles now. That's all kind of good stuff. But thank you very much for your company tonight. I hope that was interesting, because this whole business about finding life, I think, is a fundamental question that humanity needs to wrestle with. Because when you boil everything away, and again, don't boil everything away because it's bad for whatever you're boiling. But when you let's strip out religion, let's strip out humanity, let's strip out science, let's strip out everything. At the end of the day, we are a sapient, intelligent construct made out of just ordinary stuff that happens to be floating around in the universe, organized into some sort of pattern, which is able to ponder its own existence. So we're perhaps the universe's way of understanding itself. That's is that the ultimate purpose of life? That's about as profound as you can get, I think. So maybe that is the purpose of life, to understand understand the universe, because we are made of the same stuff as the rest of the universe. We're just in a position to actually be able to ponder everything else around us. So there we go. Does that help? I don't know. I'm confused now. But anyway, have a fantastic week. I will be back on Thursday, of course, for more Elite Dangerous. Back on Saturday for more retro streaming. I've got a surprise for you retro streamers actually coming up in a few weeks' time. I've managed to organise something which I'm rather pleased with, but no spoilers at the moment. That will be coming along for the Frontier thing. By the time we get to the end of the Frontier retro playthrough, I think that'll be quite good fun. We'll have some fun with that. But yeah, more streaming coming up, of course. But you guys have a fantastic week. Take care of yourselves, enjoy yourselves, be good. Fingers crossed we'll be slowly getting out of this virus situation so we can actually meet each other in person again one day. That would be awesome. And maybe travel to some interesting places without masks and viruses and stuff. So fingers crossed. But take care of yourself. See you soon. Be good. I will see you on Thursday and I will see you on Saturday. Take care, my friends, and have a fantastic week. You be good. See you soon.